Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. Today's Friday. So hopefully you guys got good plans for the weekend. I'm just going to kind of mull around, try to get some other jobs, get caught up before winter hits. So today I thought we'd discuss being uniqueness. And then Jonathan asked me about had he missed the story on the fire. I don't know if I've ever told the full story, but I can not tell the full story, but give you an idea of what took place. So, all right. So before we start today, everybody get comfortable. Randy, you asked me if I've ever been stiffed. If you've been in business long enough, you've been stiffed. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, It's the old thing, try it once and shame on me and on you, and then shame on me the second time. And the odd thing is, I can remember 2 of the most expensive ones. And they were both frickin' Massimo, side-by-sides. First one was a customer that come in and said that he had just bought it. It was used and yada yada, and he just wanted a little bit of work done. And what had happened is those units came with very weak clutches in the beginning, wet and dry clutches. And he burnt out basically both of them. So we went ahead and we ordered the kit, put those in, sprocket was wore, put that in. He said he wanted a new belt while we were right there, put a new belt on, and I still didn't want to run just right, the engine part of it. And he come down. I mean, he was the type of person who would call every day and want to know if it was ready. And if he didn't take his call, he'd be pissed. But we finally had it to the point of where I couldn't do anything more with it. That's what I told him. I said, if you want to come get it the way it is, this is what it's going to cost you, $500 and some. So I said, well, when I'm down there in the next couple of days, I'll swing by and take a look at it. And we'll go from there. So he swung by, and he gave me $100 to put down on the bill, and asked me if we could, because it wasn't that great a shape to start with, but this is why you have to know your limits. But anyways, we got it ready, and we loaded it up, and we took it, and he asked if we could deliver it. And he's like an hour away. I said, yeah, but it's going to cost you an extra $50. So he said, okay. So we drove all the way up there, Claude and I, with that Massimo on the trailer, side by side. And we get there. And they're both really nice, and they're glad to get the side-by-side back, and so Claude went ahead and he gave me the bill to show them. I showed him, and he said, okay, I'll be right back with a check. Claude got it unloaded and drove it up next to his garage. And Claude and I were standing out by the truck. Claude walked back, and I was waiting for her to come out with the check. Next thing I know, I hear the Massimo start. The garage door shut, and no one came out. They wouldn't even answer the frickin' door. That was my first time getting stiffed that I can remember. And that was for around 500 and something. The worst was another Massimo. A guy that's an hour and 20 minutes away, because we live distance up here. He had done something to the engine, trying to pull out another side-by-side or something through the mud. So he wanted to know if we could fix it. And Claude's like, no. And he said, look, I know it's not under warranty. Just have him rebuild the engine and anything else you see that it needs. And he said you can get an engine rebuild kit on eBay for around, $300 and some. That Massimo was one of the two that I talked about, that we put the handheld unit that I paid almost $500 for onto the Massimos, and it would show a code. We decided that Claude had already said he nixed doing anything on it. So I told the fellow, I said, get it here, and let's see what I can do with it. And Claude was pissed. So I knew two other shops that were doing more like ATV, UTV, and that stuff. And I asked the one, because he worked for a bigger dealership, but he had a little shop to home. I said, is there any way you can run this Massimo through your little shop to home nights and weekends? I'll order the engine kit, rebuild it, get it running. And he said, yeah. I'd used it before. He goes, yeah. He said, no problem there. So I sent it over there. We dropped it off. The parts came in. I dropped those off. And about a month later, told me, he said, I did everything you asked, but I can't get it to run right. What do you mean? I told you to rebuild the engine and to get it running right. Well, at least I can't get it to run right. I don't know what's going on. But he wanted another $300 on top of what I just paid for the engine parts to get it back. So I got it back. I talked Claude into taking a look at it. And he said, I don't like going behind trying to touch up somebody else's work. I know. So another guy from a shop a little farther away stopped in. And he was rambling on how he fixed those. And I said, can you fix this one out here? So we went out. Claude showed him what it was doing. He said, oh yeah, I can fix that. And he went on, he needed a new CDI box, knew this, knew that. Once we got it there, it all of a sudden had a list of parts it needed. Got up to around almost $1,000. And the customer showed up to see where his Massimo was. And I told him, I said, right now it's down to this other guy's shop, and you got about $1,000 against it. He said, I ain't paying no effing grand for a machine that's not running. I said, I understand that, but... So we went around and around, and I finally just to get rid of it, I just said, you know what? I'll go get it. And we had the local sheriffs, which we know, get involved. I'd been texting this guy back and forth, and I told him, I said, look, the owner wants his Massimo back. Not until I get paid. I said, I've been paying you right along, and I've been buying all the parts. And I said, you told me that you wouldn't charge anything if you couldn't fix it, and you didn't fix it. So we went down, and the battery was dead on it, but that didn't matter. We had winches right on our trailers anyway, so we winched it on. And we got it back here. And it wasn't 20 minutes later, the sheriff patrol pulled in. Like I say, we knew each other. He's like, Eric, what the hell are you doing now? I said, what do you mean? He said, what's the deal on that Massimo? So I explained the whole situation. He said, it's not even mine, it's my customer's. Oh, he said, he didn't tell us that. I said, yeah. And here's all the text messages to boot. But the guy ended up coming and getting it and taking it to another guy, and last I heard, he couldn't fix it either. But that was $1,000 out of my pocket. Those are the two highlights of what went on here, and those are the two that pertain to Massimo, and stay away from them. All right. Hopefully that answers your question, Randy. All right, so let's talk about being unique and uniqueness. And I think this kind of goes hand in hand with yesterday's video on, anxiety, stress, and all this. And what I find most of the time with folks like that are struggling with being overwhelmed and so forth is they're trying to be something other than themselves. What do I mean by that? Take today's teens. They're looking at their peer groups, and their peer groups are trying to define who they are, and you're trying to figure what mold to mold yourself into. And no matter what you try, you feel like you're not you. People will try to get you to be something other than who you are. And when you do that, you're risking losing yourself, your sanity, everything else. If you be yourself, if you are yourself, you will find you will be outgoing, funny. People want to be around you because the right people will gravitate towards you that want to be around the real you. And you see all these things, on YouTube, Snapchat, what have you. Even regular TV, of people being someone that they are not. Like this. I'm kind of like, is it Scrooge or Scrooge or whatever, that lives in a tin can, garbage can on the kids show. Look at my surroundings. That's me. I am clutter. It's my life is like a clutter. But I feel comfortable in the clutter. Have I wore suits and ties and all that stuff before? Yeah. That's not me. I can do it for short periods of time, for funerals, weddings, and so forth. It's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig, but yes, I can do it. But in the end, you guys are seeing the real me, not something that I would hope to be. And a lot of people in life try to mimic and be like somebody else, thinking that they will get the same results. And that's just not true. If you look at a repair shop and they're doing good, how do you know they're doing good? Well, they got a lot of inventory, they got a lot of, okay, debt can get you that. But why would you go mimic them instead of doing your own way? Because you're not self-confident about who you are. Or you're afraid that the real you won't be liked. And I'm here to tell you, just be you. The people that like and the way you look, act, talk, dress will be around you. And they will be real friends, not peer friends that you guys hang together in high school, of cliques and this and that. So if there's any young people out there watching this, just be yourself. Don't try to be someone that you're not. If you're not a skinny supermodel, Don't be one. Just be who you want to be. And that's yourself. And do things that you enjoy doing. Simple. And you will find by doing so, that added pressure of trying to be somebody that you're not will lower your anxiety, your anxiousness, and everything. I'm telling you right now, it's scary to try to be yourself. But it's the easiest thing you could do in your life. What is there? 6, 7 billion people in this world? But there's only you. One of you. So why would you want to try to be like the 6 billion people? And I'm not talking about, being an asshole or someone that puts the screws to people and stuff like that. No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the real you shining through and having good morals, characters, so forth. Because the real you is that. Stop trying to be someone that you're not. Emulate yourself. And I tell you right now, if you show confidence and you're outgoing because you're being you, the right people will gravitate towards you. You don't need the people that want to have a false you. And you don't want the people that want a false you. Now, what I can tell you is like with your singer-songwriters and your actors and all that stuff, they have a persona that they put out there on stage or on their YouTube channel. And then in real life, they're totally different. And that's because they're actors. And they're trying to give the public what the public wants, what their publishers want, what their record labels and everything else say that the customer wants. But in real life, they're somebody different. And that's why it's like yin and yang. Be yourself. Be unique. Uniqueness. All right, so that brings us, Jonathan, to the fire that took place January 1st, 2012. I can still remember it like it was yesterday because we were just starting to crank with online sales. And I had a home office and I had an office that was in the building we were using as a repair shop. And I'm not sure if I've told this before, but we started out and I still held my cattle barn, my dairy barn, and it was a 40-foot by 120-foot lot. Okay, and then off the side of it, towards the end, was another building that we called the heifer barn, and that was 30-foot by 40-foot, and that was kind of in an L shape. So the main barn come this way, and the heifer barn come this way. When we first started, we cleaned up half of the heifer barn and started working out of that. We insulated the walls and stuff like that. And then we used the other side of the heifer barn for cold storage. And we were really starting to grow. And we had orders coming in on a regular basis from suppliers. And I was loading the back of my vehicle full of totes and everything to take to the post office. And I had just, because it was going along so well, I wanted a bigger area. I wanted a showroom. I wanted a parts section with a lot of parts in stock inventory. So I spent that whole summer, my son and I, and probably around 40, 50 grand in materials. And we went through that whole 40 by 120 foot dairy barn. And took out all the stanchials, all the concrete that stuck up, all new flooring. The above the roof, there was still hay up there, chaff and stuff, that provided some insulation, but I went ahead and I insulated it. I studied everything down through, and we used rolled insulation, and then I took OSB 7/16 and made ceilings out of it. It was starting to look really nice. And I can remember that day we had spent all day long running electrical so that we would have, an entrance with different outlets going to here and then to the shop, because we decided that we'd keep the heifer barn as the shop area and then the other building for walk-ins and floor planning and that. But I can remember that Claude's grandson had drove by and said that he thought he'd see smoke coming out of the back of the building that housed our wood furnace. Because we had put a cement pad out there with a wood furnace. And I had just had the $20,000 preseason order come in from Stens. And there were other preseason orders that all came in at that time because it was January 1st and we were starting to gear up for the summer months. I wanted to have everything in stock. I wanted the showroom full. But that old barn, as fast as the fire department could make it there, it was fully engulfed. We did get lucky as far as we drove 3 of the 4 tractors out, and we lost the one tractor, the 2640 with a loader, and the skid steer inside the building. We couldn't get them out. And we had lost all of our inventory, all of our tools, all the customers' machines, everything. We had nothing. I think I lost 4 guns in that too. But that's where you have resilience. And Amos had mentioned it, economic times and this and that. But this was something that was out of our control. And I had options. I didn't have insurance to cover the pre-seasons. I had insurance on the buildings, on some of the stuff that was in there. But I had to make a choice. We still had my old house that we had started calling camp because the guys would come in and stay there to hunt in the fall. So I told him, I said, look, we can take camp and try to keep going. I'll get new computers. And the godsend was I did all of our accounting online. As far as all of our online sales, I had access at the home office at my house. And I kept all the records, backups to the backups on my home system. Because I would start a little after 2 in the morning at home. And I did that because I had 5 overseas employees that were handling everything from adding items to our stores to drop shipping orders from suppliers. And that was 9, 10 o'clock in the morning to them at 2 a.m. in the morning. So my day, I started at 2 a.m. And I worked beyond what my guys had been working till 3 o'clock. I got home and I worked on the computer until 5, till dinner time. What I can tell you is that I had Claude at the time as one mechanic, and then we had Krista and Randy, and there was another girl. There was 3 that were out front. I knew that if I didn't keep them on, that they would have no problem finding work somewhere else. So what I did for the first month was I gave them advances to cover their paycheck, their wages. Everyone was great. You know, I always say if you take care of the community will take care of you. 90% of the people that showed up from the fire departments were volunteer. And they battled that blaze, not for just that evening, but into the next 2 days. They had to come back because it had flare-ups. We had people stopping, saying if there was anything they could help with, help clean up, what have you, that they would be more than willing to help, rebuild, they would help us. And it even went as far as the suppliers as well. And the one that stood out the most was Sten's. And we also had, it was Gardner Canal that reached out to us when they found out what had taken place. And what Sten's did, and I'll be honest with you, the guy's name, his name is Norm. He was a salesman for him. And we were good friends, and he was a great salesman. But he talked to his bosses, and they had that, once I made the decision I was going to continue on, and we were going to be back up and running in camp, at least on the parts side. As far as doing any mechanical, it was in January, there was no place to do it, so we just decided we weren't going to do any mechanical part, just the parts business. We were going to try to keep that going until spring, until we could find something. So Stens and Norm stepped up, and they had that $20,000 preseason order at our doorstep within 3 days of me saying I'm gonna keep going. And so did Gardner Canal. They were within a couple days. They had us restocked and meeting our orders. And eBay bent over backwards. They actually had a segment on us where I went and talked with them online about, resilience and keeping going versus just giving up. So they cut slack and they let all of our customers know. But you got to have resilience if you're going to be in it. Amos said it, during the hard times, you got to find a way to struggle through it. But if it's good times and you're struggling and you're not making it, you may want to have a good look at what's going on. But what we ended up doing was we'd lost everything, and Claude's tools, everything. So it was painstakingly. I replaced Claude's tools. And a friend of mine had owned the building that we're in right now, and she had bought it as an investment. And she said, "Is this something that you can make work, Eric?" I said, "I can make anything work as long as there's a spot for Claude to work as a mechanic." And it was a 2-stall garage. So I said, yeah. So her and I went down and we did the deal and got the property transferred over to me. And Claude, I kept him on his wages all through the winter. I had him helping with shipping and packing and that stuff. But once spring hit, he was down here trying to get this building ready to get moved into. And when I say spring, it was like mid-February. We had the power back on, and we had salamanders down here heating the whole inside, and pressure washing everything, and repainting, and putting stuff on the walls. You name it. And we came back, and we came back stronger than we were before. But then I noticed the change in economics, as Amos mentioned, of the Chinese sellers. And I saw the writing on the wall, and I said, you know what? This is a time to downsize. I don't need to be the biggest and best out there. All I need is to cover these guys' wages, put some extra money in our account for owners, and good enough. So that's the skivvy, Jonathan, on the fire that totally wiped us out, but we were able to keep going. I kept everybody on payroll, got everything back up and running in a new location by, I think it was May 10th, I think, was when we moved into this, and Claude had already moved in his new tools and everything else that he had to do work. And I got all my customers got a check to cover what their machine was worth. And some of them said, don't worry about it. It was old junk anyways. But that's us in a nutshell. So on that note, we will see you Monday morning. Keep the suggestions coming. Either that or I'm going to pick the topics. All right, guys. Have a great Friday. And if I get time, I'll throw some how-tos on the weekends. All right.